Oh, shit. Hayden Duran should have known. Hayden should have known that Jesse was a danger to those around him, and Hayden should have known that she needed to intervene. Hayden should have known that on August 18th, 2010, leaving Jesse in a home with a gun and no adult supervision would have led to catastrophic consequences. And it did. Members of the jury, you have two important jobs here today. The first is to listen to all the evidence and testimony that comes out throughout trial, and you've already done that. The second and most important of your jobs is to explain to your fellow jury members why you feel the way that you do. I'm going to give you the tools to do that. I'm going to walk you through the elements of the law, apply the facts of the case to the law so that you'll know why Hayden Duran should be found liable of negligent parental supervision. To establish a claim for parental negligence in the state of Midlands, we, the plaintiff, have to prove by a preponderance of the evidence all 5 of these elements of the law. Simply put, this means that I have to show you that all 5 of these things are more likely than not true. So let's look to the first element. First, the parent or guardian knew or should have known of the need to prevent the child from creating an unreasonable risk of bodily harm. Today, throughout trial, we have learned of several instances of Hayden Duran not only knowing that Jesse could create an unreasonable risk, especially around firearms, and that she should have known that on August 18, 2010, it was not a good idea to leave him there with a gun. First, we learned of an email that Hayden sent to her friend Casey. This email was dated on July 1st, 2010. Over a month before the shooting incident, Hayden sends to her friend that she's concerned about Jesse's unhealthy fascination with guns. She's worried that he's really into shooting hundreds of people because of the video games she bought him. In the end of the email, Hayden literally says, "Thank God we don't have a gun at our home." So not only should she have known that Jesse would be dangerous around guns, she did know because she didn't want one in her home. We've proven that. Second, Jesse was suspended from school. The school sent Hayden a notice on April 6, 2010, over 4 months before the shooting. In this notice, the school details an incident where Jesse repeatedly kicked and punched another student and told them to lay down and die. This was not the first time that Jesse acted out violently. This was not the second time. This was the 3rd time that Jesse acted in a violent manner. And so the school felt it was necessary to remove him from the situation. So Hayden should have known that she needed to remove him from a dangerous situation where there was a gun. Finally, Jesse was asked to make a drawing of his best friend. Draw your best friend in July of 2010. And this is what he draws. A picture of him and his gun, where it shows him pointing the gun at kids, and literally in the last line, in the last frame, it says, "I heart my gun." Hayden should have known that Jesse being around a gun was not a good idea. She did know because he told her. The school told her. And she admitted to knowing herself. Second, the parent failed to exercise reasonable control over the child. So let's look back to the evidence that we've discussed. When Jesse gets suspended from the school for 5 days, what does Hayden do? She takes away his video games for 5 days, only to give them right back after 5 days so that Jesse can continue to play them for 4 months before the shooting. She didn't exercise reasonable control. She let Jesse continue to replicate violent behavior when she already knew that he had a problem with violence. When he draws "me and my gun," What does Hayden do? She puts it on the refrigerator in a place of honor, showing that she is proud of Jesse loving a gun. She didn't exercise reasonable control. She sends an email to her friend Casey about her concerns over Jesse and his fascination with guns. But does she express this same concern to Jesse? Does she express it to anybody that can truly help, like a child psychiatrist? No, she didn't exercise reasonable control. Third, the child acted in a way that was negligent, reckless, or intentional. Because of the word or, we, the plaintiff, only have to prove one of these, and we have proven that Jesse acted in a reckless manner. For someone to be reckless, it simply means that they have to know that what they're doing could cause bodily harm to another, and they do it anyway. We've heard repeatedly how Hayden told Jesse, guns are bad, guns are dangerous, guns can hurt people. So Jesse knew that guns had the potential to harm people, and he picked it up and he shot Sydney anyway. He acted recklessly. He was a reckless child, but it was Hayden's responsibility to control her reckless child. The fourth element is that a third party suffered bodily harm. Unfortunately, on August 18th, 2010, Sydney lost her life. She received a fatal gunshot wound to the head. You heard Andy Park's testimony about how she will never get to walk her daughter down the aisle, never get to go to her wedding, never get to see her graduate, go to prom, any of that. This is a devastating loss for the Parks, and this point shouldn't be glossed over. We have proven that Sydney Park received a fatal gunshot wound to the head. And we have proven that Jesse was the one to pull the trigger. Jules Sebastian testified that there was gunshot powder, gunshot residue all over Jesse's right dominant hand. He was the one to pull the trigger. Finally, the harm to the third party was the direct and proximate result of the acts or omissions of both the minor child and of the defendant. So let's break this down a little bit. First, the direct cause. This means that but for Hayden's actions on August 18, 2010, Sydney Park would still be alive. But for Hayden Duran seeing all these signs, recognizing that there was a problem, and listening to her own instinct, which she clearly displayed to Casey, Sydney would still be alive. But for her not letting Sydney be there with Jesse and a gun, Sydney would still be alive. Hayden knew Jesse knew there was a gun, and she didn't intervene. She didn't find another babysitter. She didn't stay home from work that day. She didn't take him to work with her that day. She didn't do anything that would have prevented this situation. Proximate result means that Hayden could have foreseen this happening. As we learned already today, Hayden knew that Jesse was a danger around firearms. She admitted to it in her own email. She knew that something was going to go wrong with the gun. She knew that there was that potential there. She could have foreseen this happening. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, with all the evidence and testimony that you have heard today, I want to give you 3 tools to reach your decision. The first is what you heard from the witnesses, the testimony, and the evidence. The evidence and testimony don't come from me or any other attorney up there. It comes from the people that sat in this chair. The second is the law. At the end of today's trial, the judge is going to give you a set of jury instructions that's going to detail out the law as I have explained it to you today. And third and finally, you'll need something that you already came in with today to put it all together. Your common sense. Don't forget about it. You'll need it while you're applying the facts of today's case to that law. At the end of it, you will be able to find Hayden Duran liable of negligent parental supervision.